They say Libra is the sign of peace, of balance, of charm and beauty, and effortless grace. But what if I told you that beneath the smile lives a war no one sees? Libra doesn't just want harmony, it needs it, desperately, sometimes at the cost of truth, sometimes at the cost of self. Behind every perfectly measured word, behind every elegant choice, is a secret tension most never notice. And by the end of this video, you won't just understand Libra, you'll uncover the hidden reason why some of the kindest people you know carry the heaviest emotional armor. Keep watching, and you'll see the side of Libra nobody talks about. It begins not with beauty but with a fracture. Libra is born at the moment the soul opens its eyes and realizes, I am not alone in this world. There is another gaze, another will, another truth. And in that realization, the self splits not into weakness but into awareness. Awareness of duality, awareness of reflection. The seed of Libra is sown in that ancient moment when we first asked, who am I in your eyes? And more hauntingly, who am I if you don't approve? They call Libra the sign of balance. But balance only matters when something is out of alignment. Libra doesn't emerge in stillness, it emerges in conflict, inner tension, the unbearable weight of opposing forces that must somehow be made to coexist. This is the sign of the mirror, not because it reflects what is, but because it absorbs what others project. Libra feels the energy in the room before it feels its own heartbeat. It reads your tone before it remembers its own intention. It is attuned, sensitive, adaptive, and in that gift lies its wound. Because the mirror always cracks. The people pleaser, the peacemaker, the diplomat, these are the names we give Libra from the outside. But within there's often a quiet desperation, not for attention, but for alignment. An aching need to make things right, to make them feel smooth, beautiful, undisturbed. Libra doesn't chase perfection for vanity. It seeks it like a survival instinct. Because disorder means rejection, disapproval, conflict. And for Libra, conflict isn't just uncomfortable, it feels like betrayal, like exile. So the mask appears, smiling, polished, agreeable, and behind it, the real thoughts, the real feelings, suspended, deferred, dismissed in service of the other. This is Libra's paradox, the sign of justice that so often silences itself, the sign of truth that bites its tongue. Because harmony, even fake harmony, feels safer than truth, that cuts truth, that divides truth, that costs connection. But the soul of Libra cannot live behind glass forever. Eventually, something fractures. A relationship becomes one-sided. A decision becomes unbearable. A lie of omission becomes too loud to ignore. And the mirror that once protected now reflects an image that doesn't feel like you anymore. That's when Libra begins to awaken not into chaos, but into wholeness. The realization dawns peace that costs your authenticity is not peace at all. Libra's dark side doesn't come from malice. It comes from fear. Fear of disharmony, fear of disconnection. But in facing that fear, in daring to say no, to choose sides to rock the boat, Libra begins to embody its truest power. The power not to reflect, but to discern. The fracture isn't failure, it's the beginning of clarity. They say Venus rules Libra, and so the myth persists that Libra is soft, passive, romantic, that it floats on charm and aesthetics, basking in admiration like a work of art. But they forget Venus is not only the goddess of love, she is also the goddess of war. In Libra, Venus is no idle muse. She is the strategist, the diplomat, the queen who smiles as she negotiates nations into silence. She knows exactly how to shape a room, how to say everything and reveal nothing, how to turn the tide of tension with a well-timed gesture or perfectly placed word. She disarms without drawing blood. But do not mistake her grace for weakness. This is not submission. This is social intelligence sharpened into a blade. Libra wields elegance like armor. It calculates, adapts, and maneuvers. In the boardroom, in a relationship, in any social field of tension, Libra is reading every angle, every glance, every unsaid message, and it's already 5 steps ahead. Not because it wants to win, but because it must maintain the balance. It must keep things smooth, seamless, stable. Chaos is not an option. But here lies the shadow in trying to make everything appear beautiful. Libra can hide the parts that are most real. It can become so fluent in the language of tact and diplomacy that it forgets the blunt truth of its own desire, wanting without offending, needing without burdening, disagreeing without conflict. These are impossible equations, yet Libra will try to solve them endlessly, sacrificing authenticity in the process. This is where Venus's gift becomes Libra's curse: manipulation, wrapped in charm, politeness used as protection, relationships based not on raw connection, but on unspoken contracts. I will be who you want me to be if you will love me for it. And yet this is not cruelty, it's survival. It is the child who learned to read the room before they could speak, the partner who senses your disappointment before you say a word, the friend who always makes things better but never talks about themselves. This is Libra's silent superpower, and also its silent suffering. Venus in Libra is not passive. She is calculating. She makes choices sometimes at her own expense. She knows that love, like war, has rules, and Libra lives by them. So ask yourself, when Libra smiles, is it peace or is it strategy? When they say it's fine, is it truth or a truce? Because underneath the effortless charm, there is always effort. Behind the poise, a decision. And beneath the grace, a guarded heart still aching for a world where beauty is not a mask, but a truth. Libra must learn. Diplomacy is sacred, but it must never replace honesty. Harmony is divine, but not when it silences the soul. And Venus, in her highest form, does not fear the tension between two truths. She holds the paradox. She wears her crown and her sword. And she chooses both love and power, not one at the cost of the other. Fairness, justice, equality, the sacred ideals carved into Libra's bones. But ideals, no matter how noble, are heavy things to carry. And Libra does not carry them lightly. It carries them like a vow. The problem is the world isn't fair. People aren't equal in their willingness to give, to listen, to care. Choices don't always fall into neat columns of right and wrong. Life isn't a courtroom, it's a tangle of contradictions. And in this tangle, Libra struggles. Because Libra is wired to weigh, to measure, to analyze every side of every story, and not just as an intellectual exercise, but as a moral imperative. What is fair? What is appropriate? What causes the least disruption? These questions haunt Libra, not because it's indecisive by nature, but because it sees too much. It feels the consequences of every outcome before the choice is even made. It doesn't freeze because it lacks conviction. It hesitates because it knows the cost of getting it wrong, and that knowledge can become a prison. So Libra delays. It consults, it pulls the room, checks. The wind tries to make a perfect decision that hurts no one and offends nothing. And in doing so, sometimes it hurts everyone, especially itself. Because justice without courage becomes avoidance. Fairness without action becomes paralysis. The scales meant to bring balance begin to wobble under the pressure of perfection. This is the dark edge of Libra's righteousness, the need to be so fair that it forgets how to be real. In trying not to take sides, Libra sometimes takes no stand at all. In trying to honor every voice, it can lose its own. And in trying to avoid conflict, it may unconsciously create it, letting tension build in the silence until the very harmony it protected implodes. Even worse, the desire for fairness can mask judgment. Libra, though gracious, can be quietly critical. It sees the imbalance, the lack of refinement, the social misstep, and even if it doesn't say it, it registers, keeps score, internally policing the room while maintaining an outward calm. It's not cruelty, it's a response to chaos, a way to maintain internal order when the outer world is too unpredictable. But here's the deeper truth: life will never be fully balanced. And that is not a failure, it is a dance. The role of Libra is not to enforce symmetry, it is to move gracefully between the extremes, to mediate without disappearing, to hold tension without collapsing. And sometimes that means making a mess, choosing a side, taking a risk, offending someone, because balance is not stillness, it's motion. It's the constant calibration of the soul as it learns, falls, and dares to try again. And Libra, in its highest form, is not a static scale, but a living rhythm, one that teaches us all that fairness is not about being perfect. It's about being present, even when the decision is hard, especially then. Libra is the sign of we, of connection, of relationship. But what happens when the bond becomes a blur, when the lines between self and other dissolve, until the reflection no longer resembles who you are? This is the question Libra must eventually face, quietly, painfully, in the aftermath of too much compromise. Because the dark side of empathy is erasure. Libra has an uncanny ability to tune in to others, their moods, preferences, values, even their unspoken needs. It's not performance, it's instinct. The relational intelligence of Libra is extraordinary. It listens between the lines, adapts before tension rises, becomes what the moment requires. It's not manipulation, it's survival. Because for Libra, harmony isn't just about comfort, it's about safety. Love is safety, approval is safety. And if becoming what the other person wants brings peace, then Libra becomes the shapeshifter of the zodiac. But slowly, in the effort to be loved, something sacred slips away: the self. What begins as diplomacy turns into self-abandonment. What starts as meeting halfway becomes walking the whole distance alone. Libra says yes when it wants to say no. It smiles when it feels invisible. It listens to understand, but wonders when it will be heard. And it often attracts partners, friends, even families, who take the balance Libra offers and mistake it for something effortless. They don't see the inner work, the silent negotiations, the thousands of tiny emotional calculations Libra makes just to keep the peace. They enjoy the reflection, but they don't realize it's a mirror they're looking into, not the person themselves. Libra can become beloved, admired, even adored, and still feel completely unknown. This is where resentment grows quietly, like ivy behind the walls. The longer Libra suppresses its needs, the more foreign they become. And one day the mask cracks. The polite tone disappears. The suppressed truth comes out, sometimes as rage, sometimes as numbness. And those around Libra are shocked. You angry, withdrawn, cold. They never saw it coming, because Libra made it so easy not to look. But this rupture is not the end. It's the beginning. The beginning of individuation, of remembering the self that existed before the reflection, of asking, what do I want? What do I believe? Who am I when no one's watching? And here, Libra must do the hardest thing: disappoint someone else, to be honest with itself. Because connection is sacred, but only when both people are fully present. A relationship that depends on self-erasure is not love, it's performance. And Libra's soul was not born to perform. It was born to relate, authentically, fully, fiercely. So the work begins, reclaiming the voice, letting silence sit, allowing others to be uncomfortable, saying yes from truth, not from fear, saying no without apology. This is not rejection, it's resurrection. Libra doesn't need to abandon connection to find itself. It just needs to stop abandoning itself for connection, because the soul behind the mirror is not lost. It has simply been waiting for permission to speak. Libra is always smiling, always graceful, always saying the right thing at the right time, a masterclass in diplomacy, a presence that puts others at ease. But behind that poise, there's often a silent storm, one that brews slowly, one that even Libra doesn't want to admit exists. Because in its quest for peace, Libra has learned to suppress the sacred fire of no. It begins with small silences, letting comments slide, accepting plans you didn't choose, agreeing to favors you didn't want to do. You keep the peace, you stay pleasant, you say it's okay when it's not, because conflict feels dangerous, not just emotionally, but existentially. And so Libra chooses the safer path: to be agreeable, to be liked. But underneath that perfect presentation simmers something ancient and dangerous: resentment. It creeps in when your needs go unmet, not because no one cares, but because you never voice them. It grows when people expect you to always be flexible, accommodating, smiling. They don't realize that their comfort has been paid for with your silence. And so the paradox tightens. The more Libra tries to be everything for everyone, the more invisible it becomes. And the more invisible it feels, the more it wants to be seen, but doesn't know how to ask. So it gets clever, passive, indirect, a sarcastic comment, a withheld truth, a cold smile. Peace is maintained on the surface. But this is not harmony. This is suppression with glitter on top. This is the dark art of performative peace, when Libra would rather fracture internally than disturb the external calm. It's the fear of being perceived as difficult, selfish, too much, and so the soul shrinks until it bursts. Sometimes it happens in private alone, a breakdown, a wave of anger that catches even Libra by surprise. Sometimes it leaks out in relationships, quiet exits, slow fades, disappearing acts with no closure. Because if you've never practiced speaking your discomfort, it can only come out and escape. But here's the deeper truth. Libra is not here to be neutral. It's not here to keep everything polite and polished. Libra is here to stand in the tension, to be a bridge between opposites, not a servant to one side. And that means facing conflict, not avoiding it, not smoothing it over, but entering it with presence. Because conflict isn't always chaos. Sometimes it's clarity. And when Libra allows its inner rebel to speak not with rage, but with truth, something extraordinary happens. It becomes magnetic, not because it pleases, but because it embodies honesty wrapped in grace. It becomes the person who can tell you the truth without breaking you, the one who can stand firm without becoming hard, the soul who can say, "This is not okay," and still leave the door open for love. Libra's greatest gift is not its smile, it's its discernment, the ability to see both sides and then choose one with integrity, not out of fear, but out of truth. And when Libra stops being everyone's favorite, it starts becoming its own. At last, Libra stands alone, not lonely, but sovereign, not stripped of its grace, but now armored with something far more enduring: truth. The people pleaser is gone. The mirror has been turned inward, and in its place stands the judge, the sacred arbitrator, not of others, but of the self. This is the final evolution of Libra, not the silent observer, not the charming host, not even the gentle diplomat, but the high priest of justice, the one who sees clearly, who speaks boldly, and who no longer fears the tremble in the air when truth is finally spoken aloud. Because harmony, real harmony, cannot be built on silence and sacrifice. It is not the absence of conflict. It is the result of walking through it, conscious and intact. Libra was never meant to be the absence of extremes. It was meant to hold them, to mediate them, to become the bridge across which others learn how to meet in the middle without losing themselves. This is why Libra's highest path is not passive. It's revolutionary. It is the quiet activist in a loud world, the artist who uses beauty as protest, the lawyer who believes law is sacred, the friend who will hold your hand through the storm and also tell you when you are the storm. It is the lover who chooses equality over flattery, the thinker who doesn't need to be the loudest to be the wisest. Libra teaches us that justice is not just a social concept, it is a spiritual force, a mirror that cannot be bribed, a balance that cannot be bought. And those born under this sign, or touched by its energy, carry that sacred responsibility in their soul. But here's the secret nobody tells you. Libra is not afraid of the fight. It is afraid of fighting for the wrong thing, of choosing sides too early, of wounding where healing is possible. That hesitation, that pause, that famed indecision, it isn't weakness, it's conscience, deep, overwhelming conscience, a desire to honor the whole truth, not just the convenient part. Yet the lesson still comes. Not deciding is still a decision. Not speaking is still a message. Silence, too, shapes the world. And so, Libra learns, sometimes painfully, sometimes triumphantly, to use its voice, to allow disharmony as a path to deeper union, to allow discomfort as a doorway to real peace. Because the world doesn't need more charm. It needs clarity. The world doesn't need more agreeability. It needs those rare souls who can hold tension without collapsing, who can disagree without dividing, who can love without losing themselves. The world needs Libra, not the polite mask, but the embodied force of balance it was always meant to be. So let the scales tip, let the voice shake, let the mirror crack and reveal what's real. You were not born to be perfect. You were born to be just. And in your justice, the world remembers what fairness truly looks like.